Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3745 BN. Today's date is October 4th, 2025, and the title of the episode is Deep State Pushing a Hybrid War. Trump is using the shutdown to defund the deep state. Timing? Peace. Now, I don't know if you know this. You're not investing. You're being used. Wall Street, Washington, the Fed, they don't care about your future. They care about control. And as they push their agenda forward, they'll take everything they can from you. Your retirement, your portfolio, your freedom, all of it. The only way to protect yourself is to stop playing their rig game and untether your wealth from the system they control before it's too late. The simplest way, move your money into a universal asset they can't print, freeze, or devalue. That asset is gold. With Noble Gold Investments, you can roll over your retirement into real physical gold and silver. Wealth that's beyond their reach and in your hands. Go to x22gold.com right now to get your free wealth protection kit. That's x22gold.com. Noble Gold, helping you break free and take back control. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see they are now pushing the last part of their 16-year plan, and that is war. When you look at Ukraine, you look at Russia and all of Europe, you can see they are definitely pushing a hybrid war. They continually report on drones flying all over the place. They're boarding Russian tankers, saying this is where the drones were launched. And you could see that they are definitely pushing all of this. Now, on the other side, you could see that Trump is actually ushering in peace. He had a peace deal that he negotiated with Israel. He submitted this to Hamas, and the nations around the world said, yes, this is a great thing. Let's have peace. And now Hamas is saying, yes, we're agreeing to the terms. Now, does it mean that they actually are? Hopefully, yes. But you could see that Trump right now, he is now ushering in world peace. And the last part of world peace is going to be the war that the deep state players are trying to start right now. And he knows that the EU, NATO, and the rest, they're not going to sit down. And I'm talking about all the deep state players above them and all the different families and everything like that, Soros, you name it. They're not going to sit down at the negotiation table. He knows that he needs the people around the world to say, we cannot go to a nuclear war. We cannot go to war with Russia. And this is what's going to force the leaders or the installed politicians around the world to back off, because they will have no choice. Because when the people of the world speak up and say, absolutely not, in unison, I'm saying everyone together, this is going to be very, very difficult for the deep state players. Because you have to remember, the only way they can bring us into war, because people just don't elect to go to war, is fear. The only way to do it is to scare you into saying, oh my God, look, so we were just attacked. We must go to war. It's almost like 9/11. They created the idea that we were being attacked by terrorists around the world. And people were like, oh, we were attacked by terrorists. They brought down the World Trade Center. We must go fight in the Middle East. They're going to try to do the same thing this time around. But this time, I think they're going to make it look a lot scarier with some type of nuclear type of scenario. And I do believe Trump and the Patriots, this is what they're leading them down the path towards, because Trump knows he can use this against them in the end to actually usher in peace, because he needs the people's assistance to do this. And remember, timing is everything. And while they're trying to push war, what is Trump doing during the shutdown? He is defunding the deep state, draining the swamp. And you could see that in the end, when all this is said and done, the deep state players are going to have a difficult time. Now, it doesn't mean he'll be able to drain everything. Hopefully, they will keep it shut down long enough where he can make it all permanent, and he can basically shut down all the different agencies, remove the 800,000 people right off the bat. Because think about it, he's already shut down their money laundering scheme using USAID. He's now investigating the NGOs. So basically, every step of the way, what he's doing, he's dismantling the deep state system. And every step, they're getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's what this is all about. It's about leverage, because in the end, you don't want them to have any power whatsoever. Because if you're going to go arrest them, if you're going to bring them to justice, you don't want them launching a nuclear weapon. You don't want a dirty nuke. You don't want them striking back. This is why he didn't go after the deep state from the very, very beginning, where he used the military. Because, again, these people, they're devious, they're criminals, they're psychotic. They would blow up a city in a second. I mean, look at the crazies now that are on the street fighting against ICE. Do you really think those people that are controlling these people, they are even more ruthless? Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're wearing a suit or not. Those are the ones you have to be afraid of. The ones that play a role to make you think that they're just like you, but behind the scenes, they are not. They are the worst of the worst, the most evil that you have ever seen in your lives. So I do believe Trump wants to make sure that he has the leverage and the deep state players are at their weakest point, because that's when you make the move on your enemy. You don't make a move when they're strong. You weaken them over time. And when they're at the point where they can't fight back anymore, that's when you make the move. And that's what Trump is doing. I mean, look, they're trying to bring us to war right now. You can see the fake news most likely is not reporting on any of this because, again, they're waiting for an event to happen to make you think it was Russia, that we have to go to war. And what do you think all this is? Where they're boarding the Russian tankers, they're using the drones, they're provoking Russia, or should we say, poking the bear for something to happen. This is what they're doing. So the bullies are bullying, and they're going to keep doing this until they get the response, or they might have to make the response up if Putin, Russia doesn't respond in the way they want, or if they kind of half respond, they'll carry out the rest of the event. But Trump, you could see that he's going to be using all of this against the deep state players, and there will be no war. It will look scary. It will look like we're getting close to war. But in the end, there will be no war. Now, we'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the fake news. Because at this point in time, we know the fake news, they're going to be pushing war very, very hard. They're not doing it just yet. Actually, if you start to look at the fake news, they're not really talking about what's going on there. Because, again, this part of it, they don't want anyone to see. They really don't want to talk about it. Later on, they'll be talking about it. But when you look at the mainstream media and think about what Trump had to do from the very, very beginning, he had to weaken the media. So this way, the media doesn't carry any weight. Think about that for a second, because you have to remember, the fake news was part of the deep state system. That was their bullhorn that they used. So what did he have to do from the very, very beginning? He had to weaken them. And that's what he has done up to this point. Right now, trust in the mainstream media has hit an all-time new low here in the U.S. at 28%. Think about if the media still had the narrative. Think about if people actually listened to the media at this point. Would they be able to start war? Absolutely. So over time, what has Trump done? He has weakened and weakened and weakened the fake news, and people are actually calling the news fake news. So when something happens, like if they try another pandemic, which I don't think they're going to do, or a cyber attack, or some type of drone attack or something, or a nuclear event, are people going to listen to the fake news the way they did prior to COVID? I don't think so. I think at this point in time, people are going to question it. And they're going to say, whoa, wait a minute, let's take a look at this. Because think about it. Every time the fake news tries to put out something, say, against ICE, the deportations, it's debunked in a matter of minutes. So I don't think they're going to be able to push what they're going to try to push. And I think Trump, he knew from the very, very beginning, if you looked at the 16-year plan, we're going to have to start off with weakening the fake news. Because if the fake news was in control and they had the narrative, it'd be a very, very different story. And every step of the way, what is he doing? He's weakening them and weakening them and weakening them. And when you look at the illegals right now in this country, the people are all on board in deporting the illegals. So when mayors like the mayor of Minneapolis, like Jacob Frey, when he comes out and he tells all the illegal aliens, we love you and we will not cooperate with mass deportation orders. What is the rest of the country doing? The rest of the country going, okay, this guy, we got to remove him. This guy is now telling people that aren't citizens in this country to go up against the government of the United States, the people's government. So is this obstruction? Absolutely. Is he trying to push an insurrection? Absolutely. And what's very interesting is that Pam Bondi, and Rapid Response 47 put this out, is she forced Apple now to remove the ICE tracking app. So basically, this ICE tracking app was tracking where ICE was, alerting the illegals, hey, look, they're coming, run. But people were actually putting in fake information and confusing the app. But it looks like Pam Bondi says, okay, enough is enough. You're actually interrupting the operations of the federal government where we're trying to remove and deport these people that have come into this country illegally. And when you look at Chicago and you look at Portland, Oregon, and you look at LA and you look at all the different places, you could see that Antifa, they are out in force. And their instructions right now are to go after ICE and to use whatever method possible to try to stop or create chaos in this whole area. Eric Doherty put this out and said, Antifa are now assaulting police in Chicago outside the ICE facility. CBP Commander Greg Bavino is on scene and is personally leading his men out to confront them. Start arresting. Antifa needs to be taught a massive lesson, and they absolutely do. And you can see every step of the way what's going to happen is Trump, he's going to bring the hammer down on Antifa. He's already designated as a terrorist. And people are like, why aren't we just arresting them? Because, again, we want to round them up all at once. When they're pushing an insurrection and Trump finally has the National Guard in position, he has everything prepared and ready to go, and he says there's an insurrection on this country, it will be a lot easier to round them up all at once. Plus, when Antifa is out on the streets and they're bringing the illegals and the criminals, this will just make it that much easier. That's why timing is very, very important. And think about it. Kash Patel and his team, they are now removing a lot of the criminals off the streets because, again, we don't want the number of people that they're going to try to bring out on the streets. So Trump and his team, they're minimizing all of this. And this is why the FBI Director Kash Patel has been working so hard to remove as many criminals on the streets as possible. And this is why Trump is bringing in the task force into all these different areas, especially the blue areas, to remove the criminals, remove these individuals that might do us harm. Because remember, the criminals, the illegals who are criminals, they don't have any morals. They're criminals. They will loot, they will burn, they will do all of these things. FBI Director Kash Patel put this out and said, Operation Summer Heat was simple. Let good cops be cops. In just 3 months, 8,629 arrests, 2,281 guns seized, 44,000 kilograms of cocaine and 421 kilograms of fentanyl off the streets. Enough to kill 50 million Americans. This is how you crush violent crime. And yes, he has to continue to do this. He needs the criminals off the streets because when they push the insurrection, we need to make sure that we minimize it as best as possible to clean up the rest of these people that are pushing the insurrection. And I do believe when the time comes, a lot will be cleaned up. And Trump is cleaning up all the drug cartels, especially out of Venezuela. And he's continually hitting the drug runs over and over and over. Ian Ellis put this out and said, POTUS notifies Congress U.S. engaged in non-international armed conflict with drug cartels, designates as unlawful combatants. New Southcom map and update. U.S. Special Operations Mothership MV Ocean Trader confirmed in theater, spotted off the coast of St. Croix. USS Truxton chopped into U.S. 4th Fleet. 4 destroyers remain on station in the Caribbean. U.S. military officials are drawing up options to target drug traffickers inside Venezuela. Strikes could happen in the next several weeks. OSINT Defender put this out and said, U.S. military planners believe that forces being assembled in Puerto Rico and southern Caribbean are now sufficient enough to launch territorial seizure operations against Venezuela, capturing and holding key strategic facilities such as ports and airfields. And I do believe Trump is prepared and ready to stop the cartels in Venezuela. And Trump on Truth, he put out another post on Truth showing that, look, they just destroyed another boat. And this is a clear message to the deep state players, the cartels, that, listen, if you're going to try to transport drugs into this country, we're just going to hit you over and over and over. You won't even see it coming. Trump, he put this out and said, a boat loaded with enough drugs to kill 25 to 50,000 people was stopped early this morning off the coast of Venezuela from entering American territory. Absolutely. And you could see that Trump, he's not kidding around. He's a president that is actually shutting down the deep state system. And you have to remember, the drugs coming into this country, they are run by the intelligence operatives in this country, like the CIA and things like that. And this was what the war on drugs were, to shut down the other cartels, to make sure that the intelligence operatives, they were actually bringing in the drugs, and they were working with other countries like Venezuela and many other countries. So now Trump is shutting all this down because, again, this is what funded a lot of their operations. And now it's being shut down. But you can see out in Europe, the people are rising up, which we discussed just on Thursday. And we could see the people in France, they're sick and tired of Macron. They're sick and tired of what's happening there. They're in a debt spiral. The economy's failing. Actually, the economy out in Europe is completely and utterly failing. Germany, they're going to be laying off 100,000 workers in all the automobile plants. We could see inflation is picking up in the EU. It's just getting worse and worse. And the people now out in France, they are protesting. They had to shut down the Eiffel Tower. It was closed because of the nationwide strikes. And you can see that Macron, he is trapped in all of this once again. The people, they're beginning to rise up. And this is why you could see the German Left Party, they're calling for the assassination of AfD's Alice Weidel. And basically, they're justifying this after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So remember, how many people have they assassinated in the AfD party in Germany? Something like 7 or 8. Now they're calling for another one. Basically, they're not even like trying to put them in jail. They're just saying, listen, let's just get rid of them right now. It's our opposition. Let's just kill them. Isn't that what they're trying to do here in this country? And many other, actually out in Brazil? Absolutely. And we're starting to see this all over the place because now they're becoming desperate. Because they realize that the people now are against them. The people now are going to be voting for a new leader, not an installed leader. And they can't stop this whatsoever. They don't have the ability anymore. So the only thing that they can do right now is try to bring us to their final part of their plan, their final part of their 16-year plan, and that is war. And it looks like this is what they're trying to start. And of course, yes, they're going to have riots across the world. Yes, they're going to try to bring us to war. I do believe all of this is going to happen at the same exact time. N-Strike put this out, and you can see that something's building with North Korea right now. South Korea is preparing for a new critical scenario, a possible attack from North Korea that could occur in the late 2020s if the United States becomes involved in a major military conflict over Taiwan. Seoul's military command is actively examining several possible developments, including limited cross-border strikes against U.S. and South Korean military infrastructure, as well as the possibility of full-scale invasion through a demilitarized zone aimed at seizing key industrial and political centers. This concern arises from the expectation that the transfer of U.S. resources and weapons stockpiles to the Taiwan Strait would create a window of opportunity for North Korea to destabilize the peninsula, something that aligns with China's strategic interests. So this is very, very interesting, and you can see that I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do something like this. But when you look at what is happening out in Europe, you can see that they're pushing this hybrid war, and they're pushing it very, very hard. And all the different airports, NATO bases, they're all now reporting that there's drones all over the place. Now remember, a reporter asked Trump, what would you say to Europe, NATO, if these drones are flying over the airports? He said, shoot them down. If they're Russian, just shoot them down. Because these drones have entered sovereign airspace, and you have the right to shoot them down. So the question is, why aren't they shooting them down? Because, as we all know, they're not Russian drones. OSINT Defender put this out and said, Munich International Airport in Germany was closed earlier tonight, with dozens of flights being grounded and canceled, while at least 15 incoming flights were diverted to airports in the German cities of Stuttgart, Nuremberg, and Frankfurt, as well as Vienna, Austria, and many others. So you could see what they're doing right now. They're actually pushing all of this. Visegrad24 put this out and said around 15 drones were spotted over NATO military bases in Belgium. According to reports, they were seen at approximately 1:45 a.m. local time over the Elisenborn military training area, a NATO base in Liege province near the German border. So basically, they're seeing all these drones, but no one is intercepting them. No one is bringing them down. No one's not hearing that, wow, missiles are flying everywhere to stop these drones. Or maybe they're using some type of communication jamming devices to bring them down. Once again, you can see what's happening right now. They're pushing this hybrid war, and they're going to continue to do this, and they're going to continue to poke the bear. That is what they're trying to do. And what's very interesting is that, let me ask you something. How much time do you spend every day on web browser? How much time do you spend clicking around online, searching, scrolling, typing, endless tabs? It's a lot, right? Well, there's a new AI web browser from Perplexity called Comet that is completely changing the way you are able to interact with your browser. Using Comet feels like having a personal assistant living in your web browser that can actually do things for you across the internet. Yes, do things, not just give you answers. You can ask Comet to handle tasks for you, and it literally clicks, types, searches, and scrolls just like you would to get things done for you in the background while you go about your day. Comet can shop for you, make reservations, book travel, summarize articles or videos, send emails, schedule meetings, and a lot more to make your life easier. Let me show you how it works. Comet can be used for everything. It does everything for you. Like if you wanted to travel, all you got to do is tell it what you want. It could book a flight. If you want to go shopping, all you have to do is ask it, and it will do exactly what you want. It's pretty cool, right? Download Perplexity's new AI web browser, Comet, by heading to pplx.ai/x22 and let your browser work for you. Plus, right now, when you download Comet, you get a month of Rumble Premium for free. That's pplx.ai/x22. Go now and take back your time online. And remember, Comet doesn't just give answers. It actually gets things done for you. Because it is a web browser, Comet can use all the accounts you're already logged into to take action across the web. Comet takes actions like a human online. It can click, type, scroll, and fill out forms just like you would. Saves time and mental energy. So take back your time online, or just click the link in the description. Putin was being interviewed, and the moderator actually asked Putin about the allegations of all these drone incursions in Denmark and many other places. Open source intel put this out and said, President Putin jokingly said, "Oh, you know, I think we had enough fun with drones for now. I promise no more drones launch in Denmark. We wouldn't want to spoil their beautiful landscape, would we?" So he's joking around because he knows we have nothing to do with this. They're making all of this stuff up. Unbelievable. Geo Insider put this out. For the first time, Major General Paul Tedman, head of the UK Space Command, revealed that Russia is targeting and jamming UK military satellites on a weekly basis. China also has tested anti-satellite weapons, but Russia shows greater willingness to use counter-space systems. So let's say we have drones all over the place. We have Russia now jamming or testing their satellites. You think they're really trying to push World War III here? It's starting to seem that way. And Putin right now has blasted the French for actually boarding a Russian tanker, calling it piracy. And they said that the tanker was seized in neutral waters without any justification, and they were apparently looking for some kind of military cargo, drones or something else. And they knew that there was nothing on board like that whatsoever. So basically, they're building the narrative. This is what they're doing. This is how you begin the war. You keep pushing and pushing and pushing, hoping that Russia retaliates in a certain way. Or they make the case of, look, Russia is retaliating, but actually it's a false flag. So these people are trying to push World War III as hard as they possibly can. And Putin, he did say something else, which is very, very interesting. He said, they say that German army should be the most powerful in Europe. Okay, we've been listening to that attentively and eyeing that closely, trying to figure out what they actually mean. I believe that no one has any doubts that the response of Russia will not be long in coming. So Putin is saying that Russia has no interest in initiating conflicts, but will respond quite convincingly to provocations, emphasizing that historical attempts to challenge Russia's sovereignty have always ended badly for the aggressors. So think about this for a second. Are they going to provoke Russia into do something? Now, of course, the fake news probably won't report on the part where NATO or Ukraine or the deep state players, where they push something against Russia. They'll only report on the part where Russia is striking the forces. Now, I don't think Russia is going to be striking a NATO country because that would trigger Article 5. Would the deep state try to make everyone believe that's exactly what they did? Most likely, yes. But the other thing that's very interesting is that Kirill Dmitriev, who is actually the special envoy of the president of Russia for investment and economic cooperation, he's been putting out Q posts, which is very, very interesting. And he says, and he just highlighted this one section of a Q post. What if China, Russia, and others are coordinating with POTUS to eliminate the New World Order? So think about that for a second. Does Trump have a back channel to Putin? Is this what they really discussed in Alaska? Did they already discuss a peace deal? And all they need to do is get the people to say, yes, we need peace, and just have it all ready to go? Is he communicating with all these other leaders? I do believe so. And I do believe that Trump he is now basically maneuvering everything and setting everything up, putting all the pieces together to usher in peace. And it's going to look like war, but there is going to be peace. Now, with Hamas, we can see that Trump, he created a peace deal. Israel signed on to it. We saw a lot of countries. They've also said this is perfect. This is what we're looking for, to have peace in the Middle East. And Trump has actually given Hamas a warning. He put this out on Truth and said, Hamas has been a ruthless and violent threat for many years in the Middle East. They have killed and made lives unbearably miserable, culminating with October 7th massacre in Israel. Babies, women, children, and old people, and many young men and women, boys and girls, getting ready to celebrate their future lives together as retribution for the October 7th attack on civilization. More than 25,000 Hamas soldiers have already been killed. Most of the rest are surrounded and military trapped, just waiting for me to give the word go, for their lives to be quickly extinguished. As for the rest, we know where and who you are, and you'll be hunted down and killed. I'm asking that all innocent Palestinians immediately leave this area of potentially great future death for safer parts of Gaza. Everyone will be well cared for by those that are waiting to help. Fortunately for Hamas, however, they'll be given one last chance. Great, powerful, and very rich nations of the Middle East and the surrounding areas beyond, together with the United States of America, have agreed with Israel signing on to peace after 3,000 years in the Middle East. This deal also spares the lives of all remaining Hamas fighters. The details of the document are known to the world, and it is a great one for all. We will have peace in the Middle East one way or another. The violence and bloodshed will stop. Release the hostages, all of them, including the bodies of those that are dead now. An agreement must be reached with Hamas by Sunday evening at 6 p.m. 6 is in all caps. Washington, D.C. time, every country has signed on. If this last chance agreement is not reached, all hell, like no one has ever seen before, will break out against Hamas. There will be peace in the Middle East one way or the other. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And it's very interesting that he highlighted 6, capitalized that, because that reminds me of post 3599, November 16, 2019. 6 o'clock can be dangerous. So he's already given them a warning, and it looks like Hamas now is saying that, yes, we will have peace. Trump, he put this out on Truth, and said, based on the statement just issued by Hamas, I believe they are ready for a lasting peace. Israel must immediately stop the bombing of Gaza so that we can get the hostages out safely and quickly. Right now, it's far too dangerous to do that. We are already in discussion on details to be worked out. This is not about Gaza alone. This is about long-sought peace in the Middle East. So basically, as of right now, he's telling Israel to stand down, stop the bombing. Let's see if Hamas is going to live up to their word, or are they going to release the hostages? Because again, if this goes sideways, what's going to happen? Basically, Trump is going to just destroy everything in that area, and they know this. And you can see that Trump, he has thanked Qatar, he has thanked Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and many others for their assistance with the peace deal. So again, this is about the Abraham Accord. This is about peace throughout the Middle East, something that we haven't seen in over 3,000 years. So Trump, I do believe he will get peace in this region. Yes, I do believe the deep state players will probably try to fight back, but I do believe this, once he actually has peace there, the concentration will be with Russia and Ukraine and the deep state players. And I do believe this is why he is now focusing on the Middle East to get it done. Either they sign the peace deal or they're all eliminated, because he knows what comes next. He needs everyone's eyes on Russia. He needs everyone to look at what they're pushing, which is World War III, which is most likely going to be a nuclear war. So he needs all eyes on that, because again, this is what's going to get the people together to say, we do not want war. Remember, timing is everything. Will it look scary? Will it look like we're heading to war? Will the fake news be pushing war? Will the D's, the rhinos, be pushing war? Yes, Trump, he's going to be pushing peace every step of the way. And let's see how this all plays out. I do believe we're entering the scare event. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is we can see that Fani Willis, she's having a very, very difficult time. And once again, we could see that Fani Willis, she has been dismissed right now from the case, and she's pretty much having a very difficult time. Kevin Moncla put this out and said, the RICO case fabricated by Fani Willis will be dismissed for lack of prosecution in 14 days if not taken over by a new prosecutor. And this is by order of the Fulton County judge. So that whole thing is completely and utterly falling apart, which is very, very interesting. And you can see the deep state players, the D's, the fake news, they're all angry at Trump because Trump has put out an out-of-office message on their personal government emails blaming Democrats for the shutdown. So when you call up the federal government, it blames the D's. The emails blame the D's. Everything blames the D's. And you can see the fake news, the D's, they're all angry about this. But once again, you have to remember is that they're the ones who are actually shutting down the government. Now, I do believe Trump, the Patriots, they actually wanted them to shut down the government, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. But the other thing that we could see is that the entire January 6th insurrection is falling apart for the deep state players. Remember, they blame the insurrection on we, the people. Actually, they're the ones who had the insurrection. We've been saying this from day one. You can only have an insurrection against a sitting president. Biden wasn't the sitting president. He wasn't even certified. There was only one sitting president. That was President Trump. They cheated in the election in 2020. They overthrew the United States government, and they actually carried out the rest of their plan by having an insurrection against the United States government. This is why Trump made a recording. He actually tweeted it out at the time. Go home peacefully and patriotically. He was not talking to MAGA. He was talking to the deep state players. If you look at the Insurrection Act, he has to say this. And when they don't comply, it is an insurrection. This is why they took all of this down. They didn't want the people to see this. So right there, he had the ability to say it was an insurrection, which means it activated the military. And he took complete and utter control over the country. Wall Street Apes put this out and said, Director of the FBI, Kash Patel, confirms with facts. Nancy Pelosi involved in setting up January 6th. She made sure there were no National Guard. Nancy Pelosi and her team were busy filming a movie of January 6th. She later sold it to HBO. The 250 FBI agents sent to January 6th in plain clothes were said to be there for riot control, but Kash confirms that's a lie. The January 6th committee was then created to cover it up. And we've come to find out, since all the evidence is coming out about the pipe bomber, because once again, we know that the FBI was involved in this. They were in plain clothes, and most likely the FBI pipe bomber was either Antifa or an FBI agent or a confidential human source. And it seems that as the evidence comes out now, it's getting harder and harder for the deep state players to explain all this. Revolver News put this out and said, Revolver blew the FBI's pipe bomb story wide open years ago. Now Congress is confirming the same holes. The device wasn't planted on January 5th. Crucial cell data was mysteriously purged, and Chairman Loudermilk is even floating the idea it was a training exercise. If that's true, why the phantom bomber and wanted posters? It's time to drag Chris Wray in front of Congress and watch him try to explain the circus. Shifter X responded and said, so they've reached the point where they can no longer credibly deny the undercover FBI agents planted the pipe bomb. So now they're trying to pivot and admit, but but claim it was some training exercise? Okay, now release the names of the agents involved and their superiors. Absolutely. So basically what we're starting to learn, and I do believe the people of this country are going to learn, that this was another operation driven by the deep state players, and it corresponded to the Russian hoax, the impeachment hoax, and everything else. And they need to, also this goes along with COVID and how they cheated in the election. So when you start to put all this together, it's the same exact players from the very, very beginning that have been trying to get rid of Trump. And they actually went ahead and overthrew the United States government, and they actually had an insurrection on this country. So basically, they overthrew the United States government. That is what people are going to learn, and they're going to learn it's the same people. Might have not been the low-level people, but the upper people, they are the same exact people. And people are going to start to learn that, wait a minute, it wasn't the people that were taking tours in the White House. This was all set up. Yes, it was an operation. That is what everyone witnessed, and that's what everyone experienced. And of course, the fake news, they try to make it look like it was we, the people. The criminals in the FBI at the time and the DOJ, they went around arresting people because, again, they had to prove that these people were part of an insurrection. But if you notice, nobody was charged for an insurrection. So once again, this was all driven to shut down anyone that was trying to talk about it and to show people there was truly an insurrection by we the people. But it was actually the opposite. And that's what people are going to start to find out now. People might not want to believe it. The D's might want to reject it. But the truth is going to come out, and it is coming out right now. And it's getting worse and worse for the deep state players. In the end, everything's going to be brought out into the open. Just like how they cheated in the elections. And what's very interesting is that in Maine, there was an individual that received a package via Amazon, and it just so happened to have state ballots in the package. That is very, very interesting. So right now, the Maine GOP is now calling for a federal investigation of state ballots found in a resident's Amazon package. How many of these packages have been sent around where there's been tons and tons of ballots in there where they use these mail-in ballots to send into the elections, to cheat in the elections? I do believe we just found out another way they do all of this. So let's see, the post office is involved, Amazon's involved. Isn't this absolutely unbelievable how they cheat in all of this? So in the end, all of this is starting to come out, and people are starting to realize that we need to go back to paper ballots. We need to go back to voter ID. We need to go back to one-day voting and one-day counting. This is how you remove all the cheating in this country. And again, if this happens, the D's automatically lose because the only way they can win is by cheating. How do you think Debbie Wasserman Schultz actually wins every single time? Do you really think she's that popular in Florida? The state's red. Do you really think the people are like, yeah, let's bring her in once again? Or anyone like Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or Maxine? Do you really think the people of their states, their districts are saying, yeah, they're doing such a great job for the last 40, 50 years? No, they're not. And when you look at Florida, you could see there's someone that's challenging her now. Carbonara is now challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And I do believe that most likely this is the guy that's going to beat her. So Michael Carbonara of Florida is a family man, American first, and he's pushing the whole MAGA movement. And hopefully Trump endorses him. And we'll have to see how that plays out. Let's see how it goes. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the DOJ, they have now fired another high-level deep state prosecutor in Eastern District of Virginia following the Comey indictment. In going back a little bit in time, he got rid of Siebert, brought in Lindsay Halligan, and now it looks like they have just removed Michael Benary. He was removed from all of this. And once again, they're setting it up so those people that are going to try to stop the indictment, stop all of this, they're getting rid of these people. And let's see how this all plays out as we move forward. Now, the other thing that we can see is that the Trump administration, they have now halted $2.1 billion for Chicago infrastructure projects over race-based contracting. So Brandon Johnson found out the hard way that when this president says something, he means it. The administration froze roughly $18 billion in federal funding for two major New York City infrastructure projects to prevent money from being allocated under what is called unconstitutional DEI principles. And now Brandon Johnson is finding out that, yeah, if you want to push DEI, you want to do all this, Trump and team, they're going to shut down your projects. $2.1 billion in Chicago infrastructure projects, specifically the Red Line extension and the Red and Purple modernization project, has been put on hold to ensure funding is not flowing via race-based contracts. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this funding is probably going and probably laundered out of the city into other people's pockets, other locations, NGOs, because all you got to do is look at California and you can see all the federal funding out there for like the high-speed train. All that money is being diverted. The money that's being sent over for fires, that is being diverted. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the money is being diverted to other programs or laundered out to others, getting kickbacks and things like that. So let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. But you can see Trump and team, they're now prepared and ready to go after Antifa. And Trump, he made it very, very clear that Antifa is a terrorist organization, and he's preparing for what is coming. Now, is he going to go after Antifa and just round them up right now? No, I think what he wants is he wants the deep state players to make their move. And their move is going to be riots in the major cities. And this is going to consist of the entire Antifa team in all the different locations. They're going to use the criminals. They're going to use the illegals. And this is going to make it a lot easier for Trump to go in and remove these individuals. Number one, Antifa is a terrorist organization. Number two, the illegals are here illegally, so they can be deported. And the criminals, they were released with a criminal record, so they could be arrested and thrown back into jail. Amuse put this out and said the Portland police are now colluding with Antifa to prosecute federal officers protecting the ICE facility. Each time federal officers engage with Antifa Portland police liaisons, collect statements and videos from Antifa to facilitate state criminal charges against DHS agents. The officers do not intervene when they witness Antifa committing assault, vandalism, or trespassing, famously refusing to arrest journalist Katie Davis Court, attacker, and more recently arresting ex-independent journalist Nick Sorter for disorderly conduct. When Antifa sets fire to the American flag, Nick put it out. Presumably this is the disorderly conduct. So yes, they did arrest Nick Sorter. He faced disorderly conduct. He put out the American flag because they were burning it once again. But the thing you have to remember, out in Portland, the governor, the mayor, the police, they're all part of Antifa. Actually, Sean Davis explains, once you understand that the Portland Police Department is Antifa, everything it does and refuses to do suddenly makes sense. And remember, if they're part of Antifa, they're part of the insurrection. Think about that for a second. Think about where all this is going right now. And Pam Bondi, she has ordered a full investigation into Nick Sorter's unjust arrest in Portland. And the investigation will be led by Harmeet Dillon. Nick Sorter put this out and said, Attorney General Pam Bondi has ordered a full investigation led by Harmeet Dillon of the Portland Police Bureau following my wrongful arrest last night. And we could see they're going in to find out what the hell's going on. Because again, if these people are police officers, they should be arresting the person that was actually committing the crime. You know, those people that are attacking ICE, those people that are burning the flag. So let's see how this all plays out. But Trump, he did put this out on Truth. He said, to ICE, Border Patrol, law enforcement, and all U.S. military, as per my August 25th, 2025 executive order, please be advised that from this point forward, anybody burning the American flag will be subject to 1 year in prison. You'll be immediately arrested. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So anytime Antifa tries to burn the flag, it looks like this is going to be a problem now. And remember, he's already designated them as a terrorist organization. So now he's adding this on top of that and instructing the Border Patrol to arrest these people. Let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Kash now, he's separating the FBI from the ADL, from the Southern Poverty Law Center. And you could see that at this point in time, you could see that everything the deep state put together, all their different organizations to push their agenda, it is now being dismantled. Kash Patel put this out and said, the Southern Poverty Law Center long ago abandoned civil rights work and turned into a partisan smear machine. Their so-called hate map has been used to defame mainstream Americans and even inspired violence. That disgraceful record makes them unfit for any FBI partnership. In April, during our anti-Christian bias panel, I made it clear that the FBI will never rely on politicized or agenda-driven intelligence from outside groups, and certainly not from the SPLC. Under this FBI, all ties with SPLC have officially been terminated. Absolutely. And think about this. Think about what Charlie Kirk put out on May 25th, 2025. Andrew Colvert put this out and said, the SPLC has added Turning Point to their ridiculous hate group list, right next to the KKK and neo-Nazis, a cheap smear from a washed-up org that has been fleecing scared grandmas for decades. They somehow still rake in over $100 million a year peddling their hate map nonsense, sitting pretty in their Montgomery poverty palace while crying about hate to line their pockets. Even former staffers called their racket a con. Their game plan: scare financial institutions into debanking us, pressure schools to cancel us, and demonize us to some unhinged lunatic feels justified targeting us. Remember, the Family Research Council and SPLC-inspired gunmen went after them? They loved nothing more than to see TPUSA in the crosshairs. But it's 2025 and nobody with a functioning brain buys their garbage anymore. The SPLC is a laughingstock, a hollowed-out husk of an organization that has been exposed as a grift time and time again. They're not just irrelevant. They're a cautionary tale of how to torch your own credibility. Maybe someone should take a hard look at where all that nonprofit money really is going. Absolutely. And really think about this. Who funds the SPLC? Well, it receives grants from progressive and philanthropic foundations. Let's see, Open Society Foundation, George Soros, Ford Foundation, Tides Foundation. So is this part of the deep state players? Is Obama involved? Yes, he gives to the Tides Foundation. Soros involved? Absolutely. This should tell you everything you need to know. American First Legal said AFL's obtained thousands of pages of records exposing Biden's DOJ's shocking partnership and coordination with the radical SPLC to weaponize civil rights enforcement. No daylight between DOJ and SPLC. Interesting. So basically, they received this information via the Freedom of Information Act request, and it reveals Biden's DOJ give SPLC unprecedented access to influence federal civil rights enforcement. They weren't just at the table. They were helping run the show. Quarterly meetings, coffee and Danish meetups, training DOJ prosecutors. SPLC, known for smearing groups like Moms for Liberty and Turning Point USA as hate groups, alongside the KKK, got early access to the FBI hate crime data, drafted DOJ talking points, and even trained federal prosecutors. Biden's DOJ invited SPLC to join standing quarterly Civil Rights Division meetings alongside other radical groups like Color of Change and the Human Rights Campaign. Kristen Clark, then Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, personally asked SPLC to flag civil rights matters for DOJ to track. This is a blatant outsourcing of federal power to a group whose mission is to destroy its political opponents. At DOJ's 2023 Hate Crimes Symposium, SPLC's R.G. Cravens equated viewpoint diversity with white nationalism and falsely tied AFL's lawsuit against Target to bomb threats, ignoring that leftists made those threats. So once again, you could see that the SPLC, they were involved in pushing the agenda. Now the FBI is shutting them down, and they should be shut down. Again, this is all part of the deep state criminal syndicate. And now you could see how many different pieces they had in all of this, and it's all being dismantled right in front of our eyes. And we could see with the shutdown right now, Trump now is defunding the deep state players, their entire system. And what's very interesting is that Speaker Mike Johnson, he was being interviewed on CNN, and when he started to talk about how the D's wanted illegals to get health insurance, they pretty much cut him off, which is very, very interesting. Cynical Publius explains, Democrats go crazy when you point out they are funding health care for illegal aliens with federal tax dollars. They claim it's a lie. The reason they claim it is a lie because they wash the federal dollars through blue state programs, and then the state dollars are what is dispersed to the illegal aliens. That lets them pretend it's a lie. You know who else laundered money like this? The mafia and the drug cartels. The methods the Democrats are using are so remarkably similar to how organized crime launder money. And that's exactly what they do. So the three stages of money laundering: placement, introducing illicit funds into the legitimate financial system; layering, concealing the source of the money through complex transactions and bookkeeping; integration, releasing the clean money back into the legitimate economy. And this is how they have plausible deniability, but it's not working whatsoever. And you could see right now that Russ Vought, he's prepared to drain the swamp. Eric Doherty put this out and said, "It's just been confirmed that while the White House is furloughing a third of its staff, all DOJ employees will stay on, along with Russ Vaught's 437 OMB staffers. DOJ is exempt so they can stay behind and keep cutting." Absolutely. And that's what we should see right now. Joe Lange explains exactly what's happening. He said the unprecedented opportunity of lifetime. After Trump won all the Supreme Court cases, which allow him to cut funding of government agencies, Trump is targeting blue states. Do you want to know why? Blue states, even with all the election fraud, are only in power because their state governments have been subsidized with billions in federal taxpayer dollars for decades. Trump's strategy is called money flow disruption. Trump is cutting off blue states' money for frauds like the railway to nowhere in California and climate change scams. He's cutting off federal taxpayer money for illegals and for things like what was just announced in Chicago. As the government shutdown enters the third day, White House officials have reminded Americans all this week that Democrats voted for the full-blown government shutdown, which was inadvertently given President Trump the great gift ever: the ability to revive DOJ-style efforts to cut waste and fraud. On X, Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought announced 3 cuts this week. First, $18 billion in New York City infrastructure projects. He said were infused with unconstitutional DEI principles. Then $8 billion in the Green New scam spending, and now $2.1 billion in Chicago infrastructure projects over race-based contracting. So all of it's being shut down. It's unconstitutional for the government to use race as a qualifier for government contracts. Trump is the first president to enforce that law and to do it in blue states. The result of all this? Money flow disruption in blue states. It is going to be a financial squeeze on blue state budgets that will then force Democrats, state and city governments to cut spending massively, all by design. Absolutely. And this is how you defund, and this is how you drain the swamp. And what's very interesting is that the White House, they put out a post on X and they froze the time on the White House countdown. And the time is 0114-2320, which is very, very interesting. And Tyler looked at this and said, that's very interesting. So is there a message being sent? Well, post 114 of the first part of the number goes to post 114, and it says, U.S. military equals savior of mankind. We will never forget fantasy land. God save us all. The second part of the number, 2320, goes to post 2320, and it shows wireless emergency alert. What a wonderful day. So the riots are coming, and the military is the only way, which is very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is remember when the Secret Service, remember when they dismantled a network of more than 300 SIM servers and 100,000 SIM cards in the New York area when the UN was having their meeting? And this was going to be used to basically shut down communications. No one would be able to call 911 and everything would just come to a freeze. It turns out that it was China. So I wonder what generals were in line with China at the time. And maybe this is why Trump called them all into one place to check out the metadata, because we know there was one advisor to Trump who was a general. Wasn't his name Milley? Didn't he advise China that Trump might try to do something? Interesting. I wonder if there's other admirals and generals in the same boat. That's very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that's very interesting, and Clandestine points this out, He says, an interesting word caught my eye in 10 USC section 253. POTUS has the authority to call in the military to suppress any conspiracy if it opposes or obstructs the execution of the laws of the United States or impedes the course of justice. This seems very, very relevant, and it is relevant. Just like the video that Trump put out. And this is about Russ Vought and how he's the Reaper and the deep state power is gone. And it's very, very interesting. And this video is 1 minute and 7 seconds long. And that reminds me of Post 107. It says, code. May God also grant all of us the wisdom to ask what concrete steps we can take to reduce the violence and weaponry in our midst. Note, when we just sent the go orders and when this tweet went live. Coincidence? Pray. I do believe that time is coming. And yes, we're going to see the go order. Because you have to remember, the people now are backing Trump. And the people around the world are going to back the peacemaker when the time is right. And when you look at Trump's approval ratings, they're continually going up and up and up. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said, wow, such an honor. Record stuff for Republicans. And it says Trump approval poll, black voters approve 54%, disapprove 46%. And then Rasmussen Reports put out how is Trump doing? And it shows Biden, his approval rating, which was below 45%. And Trump, he is above 50% or hovering around 50%. And I do believe this number is going to go even higher as time goes on, because as the economy gets better in 2026, energy prices come down, and all of a sudden you start to see things start to change as Trump is basically pushing peace worldwide. People are going to be on his side. And as Trump is saying, no, we must have peace, we can't go to war, and we see the D's, the fake news, and everyone else pushing war, I think his approval rating is going to go even higher, and the people are going to be behind him. Because in the end, the people, what do they want? They want world peace. In the end, the people do not want war. And Trump, he's counting on this. He's counting on common sense. He's counting on people thinking logically. And this is what Trump is going to use against the deep state players. He's used it every single time to get elected. Think about it. During the time Biden was in the White House, he used the people's common sense. He used the people to think logically. This is how we were able to override the rigged system. This time around, what do you think is going to happen as we approach the midterms, as we approach war? He's going to depend on the people to think logically, use common sense to shut down the deep state's plan. And will it work? Absolutely. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.